Today we are diving into a book by Mark Wolynn called It Didn't Start With You. And I've got to tell you, this is one of those books that might just completely change how you look at yourself and especially your family forever. It explores a pretty fascinating and, sometimes unsettling idea. So let's just get right into it. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had a fear, or maybe an anxiety, or even a physical feeling that you just can't explain? Something you can't trace back to any experience in your own life? Because that's exactly where our story starts today. Okay, let's take a real-life example from the book. Meet Gretchen. She's a successful woman, 39 years old, but she is absolutely tormented by this obsessive fear of being gassed. It's so bad it's actually led to suicidal thoughts. But here's the thing, the real mystery: nothing in her life, not a single event, can explain it. And then you have someone like Jesse. He has this deep, bone-chilling cold that he just can't shake no matter how warm it is outside. And get this, it didn't happen randomly. It started on the dot right when he turned 19. And just like with Gretchen, the doctors, they have absolutely no explanation. So what in the world is going on here? Well, both Gretchen and Jesse are dealing with what the book calls a fear without a story. These are these really powerful, life-altering feelings that just seem to pop up out of thin air. But what if? What if they're not from nowhere at all? And this, right here, brings us to the core idea of the entire book. Wolynn argues that the source of these crazy, unexplained feelings might not be in our life story, but buried in the lives of the people who came long before us. So here's the big, mind-bending idea. The traumas that our ancestors went through, the ones they couldn't fully process or resolve, they didn't just vanish. The book suggests they can actually be passed down through generations, showing up today as our depressions, our anxieties, our phobias. Now, this isn't some brand new, out-of-the-blue concept. Way back, the famous psychologist Carl Jung talked about this. He noticed what he called an impersonal karma in families. This idea that kids unconsciously end up living out the unresolved issues of their parents and grandparents. Okay, but how is that even possible? I mean, is it just a cool metaphor? Well, according to modern science, no, not at all. There appears to be a real biological bridge that connects us directly to our ancestors' pain. And it starts with a link that is surprisingly direct. Now, you have to wrap your head around this because it is truly wild. When your grandmother was pregnant with your mom, the tiny little egg cell that would one day become you was already fully formed inside your mom's ovaries. So that means all three of you, grandma, mom, and the blueprint of you, were all sharing the same biological space. Any major trauma, any stress hormones your grandmother experienced could have chemically impacted the very egg that would become you. The science that explains this is called epigenetics, and here's a simple way to think about it. A traumatic event doesn't actually change your DNA code, but it can attach these little chemical tags to your genes. And these tags act like light switches, turning certain genes on or off. And what researchers are finding is that these switch settings, they can be inherited. And this part just floors me. For the longest time, scientists thought that 98% of our DNA was just useless junk. But now, they're finding out that this so-called junk DNA is where so many of the emotional and behavioral traits we get from our family are stored. I mean, the potential for what's being passed down is it's absolutely massive. Okay, so if this trauma is buried deep in our biology, how on earth do we find it? Well, the book suggests we don't have to be historians. The clues, it turns out, are hiding in plain sight. They're in the very words we use to describe our deepest, darkest fears. The book has this really cool method called the core language approach. The idea is that our most intense, most irrational fears can basically be boiled down to a short, punchy phrase, what he calls a core sentence. And this sentence isn't just random words. It's like a breadcrumb, a clue leading you back to an original trauma. So let's just do a quick exercise. I want you to ask yourself, what is my absolute worst fear? If everything went wrong, what is the worst possible thing that could happen? Try to really feel it, and then put that fear into one simple sentence. Does it sound anything like one of these? I'll lose everything. They will abandon me. I'm all alone. The idea here is that these aren't just you being anxious. They could literally be verbal echoes of a real traumatic event that happened to someone in your family tree. And this just brings it all home. Remember Gretchen from the beginning with her fear of being gassed? Well, when she finally dug into her family history, She found it. In 1944, her grandmother's entire family was gassed and incinerated at Auschwitz. Her fear without a story suddenly had a story. And it wasn't hers at all. It was the echo of her grandmother's unimaginable trauma living on in her. So the huge question then becomes, what do we do with this? Are we just doomed to replay these old family patterns forever? Well, the last part of the book is the most hopeful, and it says no, absolutely not. We can be the ones to end the cycle. And the first step is actually pretty simple, but incredibly powerful. The moment you make that connection, the moment you realize, wait a minute, this crushing fear of being abandoned didn't start with me. It might be my grandfather's story. That realization alone can create distance. It can make the fear start to loosen its grip. And from there, the book gives you a bunch of tools for healing. And look, this isn't about blaming our parents or grandparents. It's about understanding them, honoring what they went through, and then consciously deciding to separate our fate from theirs. You can do this with things like visualizations, creating new mental images, and even small personal rituals to release the burden. And really, the goal of all of this is captured so perfectly in this quote. It's about transforming these patterns so that, as it says, our ghosts can go from haunting us to becoming simply part of our history. Their story no longer has to be your story. So what It Didn't Start With You is really saying is that our deepest, most irrational fears aren't just there to make us miserable. They're speaking to us. They're like a map, pointing us to a story hidden in our family's past that is finally asking to be healed. And the only real question left is, are you ready to listen?